Respected Senior, Dr. Vijai Maini, it's really a humbling honor for me to be here today in your office. It's a place always open for anyone who wants wisdom, knowledge, or who has something just wants to run through you. Thank you for accepting this invitation. How old were you when you started Surgipharm?
It was 41 or 42, yeah. 41 or 42 years old, yeah.
Okay.
I came into the country
in
1969.
Okay.
After qualifying and working in the UK.
Okay.
And, there were both emotional reasons for the family.
Okay.
My parents were here.
Okay.
All the siblings were actually in England. My elder two sisters were married. They had settled in the UK, in London. I was studying in the UK. My brother younger to me was studying in Scotland.
Okay.
And the youngest one had also just come there to do his A-levels, and then he went on to do medicine. But I lost the one next to me. He was in Dundee, Scotland. He'd finished his engineering BSc and he was doing postgraduate.
Yeah.
He developed cancer in the lymph, lymphosarcoma. Obviously, this is 1968.
Yeah.
And in those days, as you know, there was hardly any cure or medicines or something to control that condition. The only thing available was radiotherapy.
Yeah.
So we've been a very closely knit family unit.
Yeah.
So I gave up my job in London.
Okay.
I went to stay with him in Dundee. The university was very good. He was in the halls of residence, and they gave me his room to stay. And when my mother came, they gave us a university flat. In those days, and things were very, very different. He lasted only 8 weeks. So then I had to, and he passed away, unfortunately.
Sorry about that.
That was the time when I had half a mind to start a retail pharmacy in London.
In London.
There's an area, which is called Southall, where all the Indian, the Asian immigrants used to go. There was hardly any pharmacies in that area owned by Indians. If you go into a pharmacy run by an Englishman, it used to have a sign there in Hindi and Gujarati, Urdu, saying, leave your prescription here, do this, come and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I said, there's the potential.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when my brother died, then my parents were alone. So I came back and here I am.
What was the best thing about your job? As this supply chain expert that you built, your branders, what was the best thing about that job?
You see, when my partner and I, Vipin Shah, my partner, we decided to form this company. The whole aim, the intention was that we must have a very good distribution company that was efficient, that could reach each and every corner of the country, so that all the customers were serviced well. And from day one, the mantra has been, be it day or night. For example, with the hospitals, they could feel the liberty to call us at any time of the day, and they would be serviced. So there were initially these gaps we found. The companies that existed, come 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Sometimes it was difficult to access drugs and so on because the doors are shut. These were the big, wholesalers, multinationals, or one or two very big family-owned companies that were run. So we said, since we are starting from scratch, maybe that facility, if you provide, that would be a good venue to grow the business as well. And at the same time, provide the necessary services that are necessary for healthcare.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. There's a statistics right now that says out of every 1,000 pharmacies that start, and this is the case across any startup, whether you're in tech, whether you're in health, whether you're in accounting, whichever firm, 1,000 pharmacies never see their first anniversary. When you were starting out, were you scared of failure, or were you and how did you navigate that journey?
No, it was yes, scared. I think scared is maybe too strong a word. We're conscious that it is going to take a lot of doing, a lot of hard work to develop it, because we started with no business in hand. Absolutely no business in hand. We started at Comcraft House, which is in Helsinki Avenue. Now it's a university now there. We rented 4,000 square feet. And in those days, I mean, if I tell you the rent now today in the city CBD, I think we paid either 7 shillings or 9 shillings a square foot. But money was scarce. You didn't have any money. And yes, in a way, aware that leaving a well-paid job to start something. But any entrepreneur who's going to do it has to take the jump. Otherwise, you would never make it. You'd never make it.
How old were you when you started Surgipharm?
It was 41 or 42, 41 or 42 years old,
Okay. Oh, that's quite...
I came into the country in 1969.
Okay.
After qualifying and working in the UK. And, there were both emotional reasons for the family. My parents were here. All the siblings were actually in England. My elder two sisters were married. They had settled in the UK, in London. I was studying in the UK. My brother younger to me was studying in Scotland. And the youngest one had also just come there to do his A-levels, and then he went on to do medicine. But I lost the one next to me. He was in Dundee, Scotland. He'd finished his engineering BSc, and he was doing postgraduate. He developed cancer in the lymph, lymphosarcoma. Obviously, this is 1968. And in those days, as you know, there was hardly any cure or medicines or something to control that condition. The only thing available was radiotherapy. So we've been a very closely knit family unit. So I gave up my job in London. I went to stay with him in Dundee. The university was very good. He was in the halls of residence, and they gave me his room to stay. And when my mother came, they gave us a university flat. You know, in those days, and things were very, very different. He lasted only 8 weeks. So then I had to, and he passed away, unfortunately.
Sorry about that.
That was the time when I had half a mind to start a retail pharmacy in London.
In London.
You know, there's an area, it's called Southall, where all the Indian, the Asian immigrants used to go. There was hardly any pharmacies in that area owned by Indians. If you go into a pharmacy run by an Englishman, it used to have a sign there in Hindi and Gujarati, Urdu, saying, leave your prescription here, do this, come and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I said, there's the potential.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, when my brother died, then my parents were alone. So I came back, and then here I am.
So there's a Harvard Business Review paper that was done in 2018 that found that the average age of a successful startup founder is 45 years.
Is?
45 years.
35.
40.
45.
45 years, yeah.
Yeah,
and older entrepreneurs are more likely to succeed than younger ones. Yeah. I remember I started my pharmacy when I was 28 years old. And I've gone through ups and downs. I recently turned 40. I'm at the threshold of restarting again. Hearing that statistics, what comes into your mind? And nowadays, every young person wants to start a business before anything. You know, what comes into your mind?
See, there could be, you could say, a selfish reason for not starting earlier.
Okay.
Because I was so much involved in sports.
Oh, all right. Tell me about that.
Okay. I used to play badminton for Kenya.
Okay.
The first time I represented Kenya was before I went to the UK in 1964 when I was a young lad. After I came back, took it on, and from the 70s on, I have played for Kenya. And that was my other passion.
Okay.
And because at 28, 30, 35, still active playing, if you start a business, then your sports career is going to suffer. Because then you don't have the time for that. And I was fortunate, I had a job with a family-owned company that was in supply, you could call it supply chain, importation and distribution. And there, as you know, I had a bit of free time. Wherever I wanted to travel, I could easily travel. It's not like in a retail pharmacy where you're bound to the counter all the time. And you know, if you have two pharmacists, so one is always there, and I could go off. But then when the playing days were coming to
an end,
when the legs were getting a little tired, that is when I said, okay, now either you do it now or forget it. That's how it happened.
Okay. So I'm hearing you say that there's life begins at 40. Is that
business life?
Business life. Actually, your business life started at 40.
That the real hard business life, yes, began at there for me personally. But you're right. If the circumstances were different, maybe I would have started earlier. Had the passion for badminton not been there, I might have taken the jump earlier. Because you know, and I've been fortunate in the sense that you know, I've grown up in a family which was reasonably well-to-do. But to start the business, I didn't rely on the family sort of thing.
Okay, all right. So the 23-year-old who's listening to you right now, there's a 23-year-old who's listening to you right now, yeah, and they're wondering, they have no savings. Maybe they are parents, yeah. They, so what are some of these principles would you give to such a person? Yeah.
You see, if a 23-year-old
Yeah.
wants to get into business straight away,
Okay.
personally, that means he's finished university, he's got his degree, he's done his the apprenticeship, the various places. I would still advise for them, get another 3-4 years experience. By that time, the chances are that maybe they will have settled down as far as the family is concerned. He'll have been married by 27, 28. But these days, I think the young people are marrying late.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that could be an advantage is because you're getting into a business where you may not be able to earn the salary that you were drawing when you were an employee.
Yeah.
However, by that time you could be married. The chances are your spouse has a job. So even if you're not making enough money, the spouse is bringing something home to put food on the table. And then you can concentrate. I think. And don't forget, even at that age, the big advantage also could be, so even if you have a child or two, they're young, and the pressure of big fees and so on for education is not there. But one has to bear that in mind, that as the children grow, that when the business begins to pick up, that's where you have to make provision. And yes, in a way you're right. The earlier you start, if it's successful, the better growth you will see in the business.
Okay. Something you said there around you used to live on one income, then now you have a spouse, now you have two incomes. You can actually opt to retire one, pursue this thing that is able to use your skills to grow into something, if really it's inside you to start a business. How does someone go and convince their spouse to live on one income, their income? In this, we live in a patriarchal society where the man is meant to be the one with the job.
Well, both of them have to have that vision.
Okay, the vision.
Both of them have to have that vision. If the spouse's feeling is, oh, but my money is sort of thing, no, you're the man, you're supposed to provide, and if it's the lady, no, what about my own shopping, my dresses and my hairdo and all that? Some sacrifice has to be made. And obviously, you see, the other thing, of course, is that you have the pressure of the residential rent one has to pay. If you, by that time, the chances are that one may not have one's own fully paid house. So those things have to be balanced. Any business that you go into from scratch is not going to give you money from day one. So those, and when I talk of my case, I've been fortunate. You see, Kenyans have a very close-knit family unit as well. But the difference here is part of the family is sometimes upcountry. And then the youngsters are here making their life now in the cities. So that means you are maintaining two houses. Whereas in my case, it's one house. And it's very rare. But I think I've been blessed. I've lived in a joint family all my life. My children grew up with 4 generations under one roof. 4 generations. My grandchildren have grown up with 4 generations under one roof. So that way, that pressure was not there.
Actually, those are principles you're sharing there. And
Yeah.
I think it's upon someone to go and reflect on these and see from their situation. Could it be that then you need to go to, I was born in Kisii, my dad lives in Kisii. Should I go live in Kisii and start meet the needs? Because I remember when you said, when you came to Nairobi, you came to meet the need
Yeah.
of hospitals who had to wait for medicine because the importer had closed during the day.
Correct.
Yeah, so what are the needs? So I go to Kisii and look at what are the needs there. And me as a pharmacist, how can I be best suited to meet those needs is what I'm hearing as you kill two birds with one stone and kill the rent. And of course, that will require you to be good at selling a vision. I think you're very good at selling a vision. What are two or three things you look at when you're trying to sell a vision? What are the things that would make a vision, a pitch successful if you are to sell to your parents that you need to move in and start from here, or to my spouse that it will make sense for us to fold a bit, tighten our belt, but this is where we are going. I don't know, what are...
You see, this is a good example you're giving, for example, of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I know of people
Yeah.
where the family business was initially set down like Kisumu.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay? And maybe they have lived there, started a business, and when that business is running reasonably well,
Yeah.
they said, okay, Kisumu maybe is not what is going to give me the opportunity to grow
Okay.
as much as a big city like Nairobi would.
Okay.
And then once you have had that little backing, then you can venture into the city as well. Why not?
Yeah. Once it's been stable.
People in Mombasa, you have seen generations have done there. And same thing in Eldoret. So small towns, definitely it's easier if you have the family backing.
Okay.
In a big city like Nairobi, for the youngsters, the big challenge is the daily upkeep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, interesting. So you have a 40-year-old who's listening in and just is surprised as me that you actually started Surgipharm when you're 41. Yeah. And they're at a space where, you know, the children are going to university, or maybe the children are, like you said, we are starting families older a bit. So maybe the children are in lower primary or high school. They have all these experiences. They've worked for someone. They've built some skills and expertise, but they are just they're looking outside and wondering, you know, everything looks so hard. Yeah. What sort of advice? What sort of thing would you be advising such a person for them to give them sort of hope? Yeah.
If a person has attained the age of 40,
Yeah.
and he's been working, one would hope that he's managed to put aside something. Now, when you talk of the children, the essential thing is enough for their education. And by that time, obviously, you know, the spouse, in today's environment, it is almost becoming necessary for both of them to work. So on the two incomes, put away a safe nest and then say, okay, one of you continues to work, whereas one is going into the business. Certainly. And business requires a little bit of investment as well. But by that time, you have had the experience. You know, to some sort of business acumen, to how to manage your affairs, and you're much more settled and mature in your life. When you're starting at about 30, of course, you're adventurous, you take the risks, and the risks, if they succeed, the benefits are huge. But if the risks fall, you could even fall equally hard. Equally hard.
True. Thanks. And let me bring you back to the retail pharmacy space. Yeah, I remember I used to visit your office those days. I owed you quite a bit of money, but you opened your door. So to me, it felt like a son going to a father. Yeah, just a place where you can go and cry. You've been beaten, but then you leave there feeling a bit empowered. Yeah. What's this space of mentorship? Yeah. What's been the space of mentorship in your life, success, and how are you mentored, so to speak?
You see, there are 3 or 4, you could say now, well-established businesses who, even if you talk to the owners themselves, they will say, yes, had it not been for Surgipharm, we could not have reached this far. It's a two-way street.
Okay.
When you do business, it's not purely 100% that you're doing it out of, you could call it charity. Oh, this young man looks good, let me keep on giving him money.
Yeah.
Because you know the potential, and that eventually the benefits will come to you. Maybe not immediately, but most businesses usually what they say is, all right, I need this security, I need this, and I need you to pay in such and such a time. But what we have found is that sometimes, you look at a person, you judge him, and you know he's got potential, or she has got potential. And then you try and assist them to grow. And then you're not waiting for your money to be paid in 30 days. Yes, those are the conditions you have agreed to. But if the person is not able to pay you within the 30 days that was agreed, you don't shut the door. You sit down, talk to them, ask them the difficulties. Say, what's happening? Where's your money? What is stuck? If you understand it and you think it's reasonable, you give them the leeway. And that's what we have done. Of course, there are some where there have been a lot of successes, but with the same principle, there are some where we have totally lost, where people have shut shop and gone. So that obviously happens in business.
Sure.
So one has to be ready for that.
Yeah.
It has happened with us here in Nairobi. We have helped people in Mombasa to grow, in Kisumu, Eldoret, everywhere. Nakuru. And those businesses are flourishing now. But at the same time, eventually, we get the benefit as well. Because if the business grows, so will our business. It's a two-way street. But that is the hardest thing, to get the first hurdle, cross the first hurdle, and say, look, I have got credit from such and such. Then when you go to the next importer and you give the reference that I have got this credit, I've got these credit facilities, this is my credit limit, etc., then it may open a second door.
True.
But at the same time, integrity has to be there, that yes, I've got to pay.
Actually, I wanted to ask you then, so what's the heart? What should be the heart of this person being mentored? You talk about integrity a lot. You talk about also being realistic, being able to listen to the critique and the hard questions and be accountable. Does that summarize it, or what else would you say the heart of that person being, you are investing in this young person, you're investing your time mostly and the potential you are seeing. But how should this person behave?
You see, like I said, this generally comes when you're talking personally to the guy. Obviously, out of 10, you'll be wrong one. And you're misjudged. This happens all the time. I don't think you could call them con men. They probably, they didn't have the intention to con or do you, But there are obviously some who will try and surpass and then close the shop and disappear. But very few others, just because maybe good fortune did not favor them. And not through they probably tried to work hard, but maybe the place where they started the business was not the right one. And they couldn't stand the competition from the other guys, etc. And that's why the business didn't survive. But otherwise, normally, one can get a sense of feeling, and that's always been, at least I've tried to do, or we have tried to do, is not go by, okay, this is the contract, this is the contract. Most businesses run like that. Our businesses with multinationals runs like that.
That's how they'll treat you.
They obviously, they've got thousands of customers. They've got these accountants and the financial people sitting there. They see black and white. That's all.
That's all. And red.
If you haven't paid, next order goes in. Funga. Nowhere will get supplies. Whereas, being individually run setup, it was slightly different. We could do it.
Actually, when you say that, and me remembering, I think that's how you. Would you say that's been part of the cornerstone of your success, being able to have that personal? Because you're saying out of 10, maybe one will fail you, but that means you've got 9 reliable people who you can grow with.
Absolutely.
Who can grow you, and it's been like 5 decades almost.
You see, my thing is, you are loyal and faithful to one. The other person is loyal and faithful to you. Both of you will grow.
Exactly. All right.
Both of you will grow. It's a give and take. It's mutual.
Exactly. All right. Symbiotic. So for you, from this vantage point of 50 years in that sector, I'm sure you've seen a lot of successes and failures. I would like to zero in on the failures. Colleagues or businesses in the healthcare sector that have started and failed, but then I'd like to zero in on the ones that rose from their failure. What are some of these patterns you are seeing that got them to fail, and what patterns got them to success after the failure? 2-part question.
You see, the one which really I feel bad about, because it was being run by one of the very early indigenous pharmacists in Neri. A gentleman, fantastic business he had, and he developed the business in that area. Was doing great business. But suddenly, when I think he had ambition to develop, but he went outside the field. So you're doing the pharmaceutical work, you go into hotel business, you go into a farm. Now when you have these two new things which are money drainers, then the pharmaceutical business began to suffer. Before that, he had a fantastic, thriving business. Obviously, but not to the extent he could say, now I'm a billionaire or something. But that was the ambition. But unfortunately, it didn't click, because you take on too many loans, too many liabilities. It is difficult to do justice to all of them.
So you're saying, don't be scared to kill some of these dreams. Is that what you're saying?
You see, that is where maybe you could say one has to be a little more adventurous. You're a risk taker. Whereas, unfortunately, I do use the word unfortunately, I've been cautious. Like, for example, all these years, one would say, don't you own this building? No. I have been cautious I said, look, I've got so many principals
Okay.
who give me my bread and butter.
Mm.
Now I start investing in bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
I've got another liability.
Yeah. That too.
What if I fail on one?
One. Yeah.
So had I many years ago,
Yeah.
for example, now we're talking of 37 years,
Yeah.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
started when everything was so cheap comparatively at that time.
Yeah.
I could have owned it,
True.
but then didn't take that risk to go into it. Maybe a younger guy,
Would have wanted.
somebody who says, okay, no, my thing was, I am like a horse with those shields
Exactly.
looking at one. Pharma is my world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I want to develop.
Bread and butter.
Forget everything else.
So that sort of focus and yeah.
Focus purely on this.
Yeah.
And that is what has helped to grow the business in a way. I may not own buildings,
Yeah.
but we have a very successful business.
Okay. Hearing what you're saying is you keep moving and have that focus on. Today we can say Surgipharm is a success, 50 years plus success. Yeah. But had you been meandering around and you'll have a lot of these things strewn all over the country, but white elephants. Yeah. And I think we have a lot of that in that this narrative of, you know, we have to do it today. Yeah. What has been that space of endurance? You know, seeing a decade go, you're still doing the same thing. You never felt at one point that this is a boring life?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, what I did not mention earlier, when we started, one has to be lucky to get a break.
Okay.
Now, with us, now, you know, when in 1986, there's a French company, Sintalabo. So I knew the guy who was in charge of this market.
Okay.
And he said, because some of the interaction we had, the same way I'm talking to you about when a retailer comes to me,
Okay.
he had some good feelings, and he says, fine, you're going to get this agent. I want you to be my distributor.
Okay.
And from day one, he gave me credit. The big one, the real big one, came with Beecham Research International
Okay.
in 1987. The guy I had known, he was the vice president for Africa then. The guy I had known since 1970 when he was a medical rep. Now he was a vice president. And they were having some difficulties, and they said, okay, Vijay, we're going to start with you. Only one thing, don't let me down.
Okay.
Open credit, send the goods, pay me on time. And that was it. Even any of the local guys we went and bought from. It was difficult even to get appointed as a distributor by some of them. Others said, sorry, you're too new. Yeah, we've known you in the field, but now in business, after 3 or 4 years, once you have settled, then come and talk to us. After a lot of door knocking, then people like Glaxo and Welcome, separate companies they were, they opened the doors and said, okay, on cash dealing only.
Okay.
So we said, okay, fine. When you work hard and you start developing the customers, and from there, it happens. But had it not been, for example, for these two other big ones, it would have been a struggle. And from then on, you see, once you get a good established name behind you, then the others begin to take interest. As you grow this business, and the others say, okay, we can join. So that is why don't be shy. You don't want to do it overnight.
Okay.
Establish yourself.
Okay. Actually, just to pick on what you're saying, I'm calculating here, and it's 17 years from when you started, when you're talking about a big break. You're talking about 1987. You're talking about someone who was a med rep, and you treated them very well, or you had a good relationship that now one day culminates in them being in a position to help you from the other side. So this luck you're talking about, it's not really out of nowhere. It's about your character. If I'm hearing you right, it's the seeds you've sown over, 17 years. That's, a child has gone to university if they were born 17 years ago. But that's when you're saying you caught your big break. Yeah. So as one of the endearing message out of all this here thing I'm hearing is about endurance. You should be able to also have a clean name, and that just stems from how your dealings of day to day. And the moment you stop having so much, what is everyone else doing? Can I go do that? Am I being left out? Have that sort of zeroed focus and covering your eyes and just focusing on where you need to go.
I've been fortunate in that there's a background. I've got a family background in the country.
Okay.
That also helps.
So a clean name also that you can bank on.
Absolutely.
So to speak. Yeah.
The family has been here since 1897.
1897. That's yeah. So you were able to write
the surname means a lot.
Yeah. So as we also go through life, are we building our names? How do you build a name like that, Dr. Maini? How do you build a name like that? A name that is able to, when my son comes in, my son is 5 years old right now, or my daughter who's 11 years, when she comes and she wants to start something 20 years from now, what are the things I need to be doing faithfully?
You see, the thing
to have a clean name.
Yeah. Now,
to have a bankable name.
Because they grow up in an environment, see what the father or the grandfather has done, and then you realize your position, not only in the business community, but in your social community, in your religious place, etc. And that infiltrates you. And then you're conscious, I cannot let this family name down. So that is how it is developed in bone. Now your children, for example, they realize, now, you started with from humble beginnings. You have grown into the head of the pharmacy profession, pharmaceutical society of Kenya, etc. They're absorbing this, and subconsciously they will have a vision not to let you down. That's also quite important.
I should take this seriously myself as well.
That's right.
And even have them see that and see what's the value of having a clean name and a name that you can actually bank on later on in life when you need to cash in on that.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so Dr. Maini, I'd like to go back and just know you a bit more. I'd like to touch on spirituality. From my own experience, I've seen that you can end up building a big name for yourself, but the moment there's no higher power above you, that name can sort of lead to your downfall. Yeah. So what has been your spiritual journey, the role? I know I've heard strongly about your family, and how that was instrumental. I think there's something about spirituality. Please feel free to talk about that.
You see, I'm born in a family which has been religious-minded since birth, and in a way, so have I. So when the original pioneers, my grandfather and his uncle, one of the first temples to be built in Nairobi was done through their efforts. It still exists on Ronald Ngala Street. It used to be called Duke Street. And that temple, built, and from childhood, I remember going there. a little later, they said, okay, now, usually in the Indian community,
Yeah.
girls did not have the same, you could call it a place for education as boys.
Okay.
And the families were much more concentrating on
the
boys' education must.
Okay.
But then they felt, no, the girls need to be educated as well.
Okay.
So they built a school there as well, within the same place. That school still exists, but now it is being run by the city council.
Okay.
But the building still belongs to the religious community.
Okay.
And that temple, we still go to, it's become very difficult to visit there because of the traffic, etc. now.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the community built a new temple on Lower Kabete Road, opposite the Spring Valley, that shopping center.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So there now it's a lot easier
Okay.
and so on. People come. But that temple still exists. I have been a member
Okay.
of the community, regularly attending various functions, etc. And for a number of years now, I've been the trustee at the new temple, or both temples really,
Yeah.
trustee.
Yeah.
And currently, we are busy writing a new constitution,
Okay.
revising the constitution to make it more up to date. So that way, still quite involved
Okay.
in that.
Yeah.
But I try and attend
Okay.
all the religious functions and so on. Right? But to a certain extent, I'm not one who says, look, every so many days at this particular time I have to be there.
Yeah.
I'm religious minded, but not fixated on it. Let's put it
Okay.
that way.
Okay. If you're not in supply chain, what other business would you have been in? Are there dreams that you had other than?
In those days,
Yeah.
I would have never gone into retail,
Okay.
because retail means I have to be there 7 days a week.
Hands on, yeah.
Then my sports career
Would
would have suffered. So,
So supply
in a
chain
way,
worked for you.
I didn't want to be anywhere else. And with my previous employers, I had that understanding and I had the leeway. Okay, whenever, if you're going to the Commonwealth Games or something for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, okay, fine, go. And that didn't affect.
Okay.
Because you get a letter from the Ministry of Sports saying, okay, look,
He's
your
representing
representing is going. Cheerio, goodbye, you're going.
Yeah.
Retail pharmacy, you can't do
You
that.
can't do that, yeah.
So, obviously, apart from pharmacy, there's no other business I can do.
Okay.
Too old now to think of something starting from scratch.
Scratch, yeah. Okay.
But, pharmaceutical business will obviously be very dear to me.
Do, yeah.
Yeah. I wish the society well in their endeavors,
Okay.
and I hope the goals are achieved soon.